Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Dear students, Assalamu alaikum and welcome back in lecture number 31. And this is our second last lecture, and let's have a recall of our memories from our previous lecture. In previous lecture we revised chapter number 4, and this is actually a continuation of revision of chapter number 3 and then chapter number 4, and now we are going to discuss the chapter number 5. And chapter number 5 is very important chapter, as it is about the risk and return. And in our chapter number 4, which was about valuation of the long-term securities, we covered the following topics, that is, differentiate and understand the various terms used to express value. And then you remember that we discussed about the liquidation value, we discussed about the going concern value, book value, bond value, and there were different terminologies for those securities. We discussed them all. And also we discussed and we determined the value of bonds, preferred stocks and common stocks. So there were different techniques to determine the value of bonds, preferred stocks and common stocks. Particularly in the phase of common stock, there were different growth patterns of dividends. There were random dividend distributions, and there were constant growth dividends, and there were growth in dividends in different phases. So we determined the value in that case as well. And also dividend valuation models, we discussed them in detail, and the yield to maturity and determination of required rate of return, that is where we have the market value. For that market value, what required rate of return satisfies that model, we determined that required rate of return, which is in fact the yield to maturity. And today we are going to discuss the first part of our chapter number 5, which is about risk and return. And in this chapter there are few learning outcomes which you are expected to have, and after studying chapter 5 you will be able to understand the relationship between risk and return, that is how much risk you will take to earn how much return, and define risk and return on how to measure expected returns, standard deviation and coefficient of variation. जब हम किसी भी इन्वेस्टमेंट में उसका जो रिस्क है उसको कैलकुलेट करेंगे, then we have to make all these calculations, that is standard deviation and coefficient of variation. And then discuss the different types of investor attitudes toward risk. इसमें different attitudes हैं investors के. Sometimes the investor is a risk averse, sometimes the investors they prefer to take risk, and sometimes the investors they are risk indifferent. And then you will be able to explain risk and return in a portfolio context and distinguish between individual security risk and a portfolio risk. So where there are portfolio of investments, and the objective behind is to reduce the risk involved in the whole scenario. When you have few investments, the risk is higher, and when you add more investments in different types of securities, in that case you eliminate the risk because of the diversification of the securities you invested in. And then distinguish between avoidable, that is unsystematic risk, and unavoidable, that is systematic risk, and diversification of risk. And you will be able to explain the capital asset pricing model, that we call it CAPM as well, beta, and the characteristics line. Then you will be able to calculate a required rate of return using the CAPM model, and you will be able to demonstrate how the security market line can be used to describe this relationship between the expected rate of return and systematic risk. And then you will be able to explain what is meant by an efficient financial market and describe the 3 levels to market efficiency. And in this chapter of risk and return, we will be discussing the following topics, that is defining risk and return, using probability distribution to measure risk, attitude towards risk, risk and return in a portfolio context where you have a lot of investments, more than one, and diversification, the capital asset pricing model, and efficient financial markets. First of all, let's see what is a return. When we are going to define risk and return, so let's see what is a return. So return, actually, when you invest in any security and the annual dividends or the interest you earn out of those securities plus the change in the market value of that security will determine the rate of return. For example, the dividends you earn and the price you paid in the beginning, that is at the time you purchase the security, and the price of the security today, that is the time when you sell that property, that security, or the price of that security today, and then you add all these gains. This part is dividend income, and this part, if positive, will constitute a capital gain, and if it is a negative, then it will be a capital loss. So in that case, you will have a net change in the return, and then you divide it with the investment you made, so you will get the value of return. And now we'll clarify the concept of return with this example. Suppose the stock price for stock A was $10 per share 1 year ago, and the stock is currently trading at $9.5 per share, and the shareholders just received $1 as a dividend. What return was earned over the past year? So we have to calculate the return in this case, where we have the price of the stock 1 year ago, suppose that was the time of investment, and then at present we have the price of the stock, that is the market price, and then the dividend during this period. So you can see here the dividend which is paid, that is $1, and then the change in the value of the share, that is at time t today we have the value $9.5, and 1 year ago the value was $10, so there is a capital loss of $0.5. So the net change in the return would be 0.5 divided by 10. So we have a figure of 5%. So the return on this stock is 5%. And now we define the risk. Risk is the variability of returns from those that are expected. For example, in our previous example, we expected a return at the time of investment, suppose it was 10%, but during the year the return was 5%. So the variation from the expected to the actual, that would be called as a risk. So the higher the variation, the higher the risk. जितना ज़्यादा variation होगी उतना ही ज़्यादा risk होगा. And what rate of return do you expect on your investment this year? आपने कितना return अपने investment पे इस साल पे expect कर रहे थे, and then how much return you get for your investment this year. So that will make the factor of risk. उसमें कितनी variation है, that will determine the risk. And then, as we discussed in our previous lecture, there are two types of distribution, that is discrete distribution and there is a continuous distribution. So we determine the expected return for the different distribution, that is discrete and continuous. So in case of discrete distribution, the expected return, that is we have returns and probability for each return. For example, in this year, what probability is assigned to what level of return. So each expected return will have a corresponding probability. So we denote it with I. And for ith return, there is a probability of P. So we take sum of all these weights, we multiply the expected return with its probability, and then we add up them all, then we get the expected return. So you can see here R bar, which shows the expected return of the asset, and Ri is the return for the ith possibility, and Pi is the probability of that return occurring, and N is the total number of possibilities. हम इस एग्जाम्पल से इसको मजीद क्लियर कर सकते हैं. फॉर स्टॉक XY, you can see here there are different returns possible. So there is a possibility of negative return. There is 10% possibility, and then for a negative return of 0.03 there is possibility of 20%, and then for a positive return of 0.09 there is a 40% probability. So accordingly, for each possible return there is a corresponding probability is given. And keep in mind कि जो probabilities का total है that should be equal to 1. and then we multiply the each return with its corresponding probability, and we list down them here, and then we add them up. We get the expected return, which we denote as R bar. So then the expected return for the stock XY is 0.09 or 9%. And to calculate the standard deviation, we have this formula. We practiced it before in case of expected net present value as well. So here we have Ri, the returns over the different possible returns, minus the expected return. We take whole square of it, and we multiply the respective probabilities for each of this return, and then we take a sum of them, and then we take a square root, so that we determine the standard deviation. And if we don't take the square root, then that will be called as variance. और variance का formula है, अगर हम इसी equation का square ले लें, that will become like this. I would start from 1 to n, and then again it will be the same thing, but the only difference is that we eliminate the square root part. So this will be called as variance. So whenever you have variance and you have to determine the standard deviation, just simply take square root of it, you will get the variance. So in our example, we calculate the standard deviation. We have Ri, the returns, we have the probability for all these returns, and we multiplied them, and we take the difference of Ri with the expected return, we take a square of it, and then we multiply it with the respective probabilities, and we have this figure for each year, for each possible outcome, and we get the total of them. It is like 0.01728, and then we take a square root of it, and we calculate the standard deviation, which is 13.15% in this case. And another measure to determine the risk, which we call as standard coefficient of variation, and we calculate it dividing the standard deviation with the expected return. We calculate the coefficient of variation for any stock. So the ratio of the standard deviation of a distribution to the mean of that distribution, mean actually the expected return, and it is measure of relative risk. So this is a measure of relative risk, because we take the standard deviation in the numerator and we divide it with the expected value. So that will give us coefficient of variation. And the difference between a discrete and a continuous distribution is that in this case the possible outcome is determined. For example, if you use a die and you roll it over, so out of 1 to 6, only one possible outcome is possible here. So for each outcome, the possibility is 1 over 6. For example, in a die, there are numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And when you roll it, so out of 1 to 6, each number can come. Each number can be an outcome. So the probability of each number is 1 over 6 here. So there is no possibility a number would lie between 1 and 2. So that is a discrete distribution. But अगर किसी ऐसी situation में जहाँ possibility can be between 1 and 2 as well, that is any number between 1 and 2, for a continuous distribution, the example is you take a piece of paper and you cut it. The length can be any number. It cannot be that the length would be 1 or 2 or 3 centimeters. It may be 1 point some centimeters, it may be any length. So that possible outcome is between all the possibilities to the infinite number. So if you see here, the possible outcomes we can see here. So out of all these possible outcomes, the outcome can be any point here. So in this graph, the probability given is along the y-axis, and the returns, suppose they are given along the x-axis. So there is probability assigned to each possible outcome. Here you can see, for example, for a probability of 9%, for a return of 9%, the probability is 0.04, that is 40% here, and then here it is 20%, again here 20%, and 10%, and 10%. And now keep in mind, so the sum of all these probabilities must be equal to 100% or 1 in this case when we have 0.4. So 40%, 20% and 20% make it 80%, and then 20, 10 and 10, 20. So in total it is 100%. So again, on a continuous distribution, the possible outcomes, it may lie out on any point, then the total number of probabilities, when you add them up, it should make equal to 1. And in case of continuous distribution, how do we calculate the expected return? The formula is that simply add up all the possible outcomes and divide them with the total number of outcomes. So you have here that Ri, that is all the possible returns, and add them up starting from 1 to n, and then divide them with the given number. And then how do we determine the standard deviation? We take a difference between Ri minus the expected return, and we take a square of it, we take a sum of it, and we divide them with n. And we take a square root of this whole outcome. That will determine the standard deviation. So in this example, we have a practice for this, the determining expected return and standard deviation for a continuous distribution. So we have assumed that the following list represents the continuous distribution of population returns for a particular investment, even though there are only 10 returns. So we have 9.6%, minus 15.4%, and then all these possible returns, they are given here. So calculate the expected return and standard deviation for the population assuming a continuous distribution. So we take a sum of all these possible outcomes. So to calculate the expected return, first of all we add them up, we add all these outcomes and we divide them with the total number. So we have 9.6% plus, the figure is negative here, minus 15.4 plus 26.7 minus 0.2 plus 20.9 plus 28.3 minus 5.9 plus 3.3 plus 12.2 plus 10.5. We have a total equal to 9. And how many numbers do we have here? We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 and 10. So there are 10 possible outcomes. So the number n is equal to 10. So for expected return, that is R bar, we have 90 divided by n, which is equal to 10. The expected return is equal to 9%. And now we have to calculate the standard deviation. So for standard deviation, we have to take the difference between all the given returns, that is 9.6%, 15.4%. So then we take a square of them and we add them up and we divide them with the total number, that is 10. And then we take a square root of it. So that will give us the standard deviation. So let's solve for it. And for the standard deviation, you have to solve it like this. The standard deviation, we call it sigma as well. So you have to take the difference between the given returns in the previous slide minus the R bar, which is given here. So we have 10 returns, so we can write it like this. And we take a square of them plus R2, that is second possible return, minus expected return. And then for all the possible returns, we have 10 possible returns minus R bar, that is expected return. We take square root of it and we divide it within the square root by n, which is equal to 10. So when we solve for it, we get the standard deviation for the given distribution. And now we discuss the risk as attitudes. The people, they have different attitudes toward the risk. Some people, they try to avoid risk, and some people, they are ready to take risk. And the people who want to take high risk, they can earn some high returns as well. So then before that, we have the concept of certainty equivalent. So it is the amount of cash. someone would require with certainty at a point in time to make the individual indifferent between that certain amount and an amount expected to be received with risk at the same point in time. हम इस concept को example के साथ clear करते हैं. So if the certainty equivalent जो कि कोई भी investor चाहेगा before investing into any security is greater than the expected value, so in this case this is a risk preference. It means the person is ready to take risk, the investor is ready to take risk, and in this case certainty equivalent, when it becomes equal to expected value, the person is risk indifferent. So in that case risk and return, they become equal in this case. And when the certainty equivalent is less than the expected value, then the person avoids risk. The person is not ready to take this risk. And most of the individuals, because the investment they are going to make is very much precious to them, so they avoid risk and they take very much calculated risk. And the example to clarify the concept is that when you have the choice between a guaranteed dollar reward or number 2, a coin flip gamble of 100,000, that is 50% chance you can earn 100,000 and a 50% chance you can earn $0. So then the expected value of the gamble is $50,000. So if you take the expected value in this case, the first possible outcome, it is 100,000 and the probability is 50%, plus the second possible outcome is 0 into probability of 50%. So if you solve for it, you have the possible outcome, that is the expected value, that is equal to 50,000 here. And then there are 3 different persons with 3 different risk attitudes. So in case of Mr. A, Mr. A requires a guaranteed $25,000 or more to call off the gamble. And instead of this gamble, if Mr. A is offered $25,000 कि वो इस coin flip को avoid कर सके, so in that case the Mr. A would prefer to have $25,000 instead of flipping that coin to earn $100,000 or $0. And then Mr. B is just happy to take $50,000 or take the risky gamble. So if Mr. B is offered $50,000, so the certainty equivalent in case of Mr. A is 25,000, and in case of Mr. B, the certainty equivalent is equal to 50,000. So if Mr. B is offered 50,000, Mr. B might not go for the gamble. And then in case of Mr. C requires $52,000 to call off the gamble. In this case, Mr. C is ready to take risk because the expected value, that is $50,000 in this gamble, is less than the certainty equivalent of Mr. C. So Mr. C is ready to take risk. Either Mr. C will be getting 100,000 or he will be getting nothing at all. So now we explain the risk tendencies of each of these investors. First of all, Mr. A shows risk aversion because his certainty equivalent is quite less than the expected value of the gamble. And then Mr. B exhibits risk indifference because his certainty equivalent equals the expected value of the gamble. And then Mr. C reveals a risk preference because his certainty equivalent is more than the expected value of the gamble. So in that case, Mr. A, B and C, they have different attitude towards risk, and it will all depend on the certainty equivalent. All these Mr. A, B and C, they would expect from this action. And next is the important concept of portfolio expected return. इसमें जब investor has invested in more than one security and the possible returns for each security is also different for different investments, so when we combine the total risk of that portfolio, we call it portfolio expected return. So we calculate it using this formula here, that is expected return of a portfolio would be equal to the sum of the weightage of each of the investment, that is WJ. WJ would start from N to M. M is the number of total investments in different securities. and Rj is the expected return of each of the securities. So we calculate the expected return of each of the securities and then we assign the weight of the सिक्योरिटी. फॉर एग्जांपल अगर फर्म ने दो सिक्योरिटीज में इन्वेस्टमेंट की हुई है 50% ईच, तो there are for the first investment the possible return, the expected return will be multiplied with the weight of that security, that is 50%, and then for the second expected return for the second investment in security, the weight of that security will again be multiplied with that, and then we add them up to determine the expected return of that portfolio. So we have, and to calculate the standard deviation of a portfolio, we have this formula, that is weight of each of the different securities and then the standard deviation between these securities. So in this case we have to take square root of all this calculation, and we have an example to clarify this concept. So here Wj is the weight or for the investment proportion for the jth asset in the portfolio, and Wk is the weight for the kth asset in the portfolio, and sigma jk is the covariance between returns for the jth and kth asset in the portfolio. So we saw in the previous slide the expression of covariance between two different portfolios, that is two different investments J and K. So in this case the sigma jk, which is the standard deviation of jth asset and in the portfolio and kth asset in the portfolio. So we can see here the sigma jk, that is standard deviation between J and K, can be solved for the standard deviation of J and the standard deviation of K, and then coefficient of correlation between J and K. So Rjk is the correlation coefficient between the jth and kth asset in the portfolio, and then correlation coefficient R, which we discussed in previous slide. What is that? A standardized statistical measure of the linear relationship between the two variables. Its range is from -1, perfectly negative correlation, through 0, that is no correlation, to +1, that is perfectly positive correlation. अब इसमें आइडिया ये है कि where you have more than one investment in different securities, so in that case each of those securities, if the risk and return they are correlated with each other and R, which is coefficient correlation, is equal to 1, it means they are perfectly aligned. When the returns they are higher for one investment, the returns will be higher for the other investment, and when the returns are lower for one investment, the returns will be lower for the second investment. So in that case the risk for the firm will be higher when the coefficient of correlation is perfectly aligned between two different securities. तो इस केस में फर्म का जो रिस्क है that is higher. अब फर्म इसको कम कैसे कर सकती है? टू हैव डिफरेंट कोएफिशिएंट ऑफ कोरिलेशन. इट मींस कि अगर एक एसेट जो है या एक सिक्योरिटी जो है उस पे रिटर्न ज्यादा आ रहा है एंड प्रोबेबली फॉर द नेक्स्ट सिक्योरिटी द रिटर्न इज लेसर, द लाइन कैन बी स्ट्रीमलाइंड फॉर द रिटर्न्स, एंड इफ द रिस्क और द रिटर्न्स आर लोअर फॉर वन इन्वेस्टमेंट, द रिटर्न्स माइट बी हायर फॉर द नेक्स्ट इन्वेस्टमेंट अगर वो आपस में परफेक्टली कोरिलेटेड नहीं है. तो the securities where you invest your investment, they should not be perfectly correlated with each other such that the risk and returns can be streamlined here. And now we have to solve for the standard deviation of the portfolio investments. So in case for example there are three assets, अगर फर्म ने या किसी इन्वेस्टर ने portfolio investment की हुई है three different assets में, in that case how do we calculate the standard deviation? So we will be having different combinations based on the weightage and the coefficient of correlation between all those combinations. So in that case we have a variance and covariance matrix. So in case of three asset portfolio, each of the asset will be having a possible combination with the assets. For example, the asset 1, which has a weightage of 1, will have different combinations with the assets 1, 2 and 3. So you can see here the asset 1, W1, can have different combinations with other assets. So it is with asset 1, weightage with asset 1, you can see here, and then with 2, then with 3, and then again the second weightage, that is W2, it can have possible combinations with W1, W2 and W3, and along with the covariance that is denoted as sigma here, with the between 1 and 1 and between 1 and 2 and 1 and 3. And again in the second row the sigma would represent for the second asset, that is sigma, the covariance between 2 and 1, the covariance between 2 and 2, and covariance between 2 and 3, and likewise for the third row we have the weightage W3 and its combinations with W1, W2 and W3, and likewise the covariance between 3 and 1, 3 and 2 and 3 and 3. So we can solve for this and we can add them up and we can take a square root of it, then we will get standard deviation of the portfolio. So in the next slide we have a portfolio of 2 assets, and then let's see how do we solve it. So you are creating a portfolio of stock D and stock XY. So there are 2 stocks where the investment is made, and you are investing 2000 in stock XY and 3000 in stock D. Remember that the expected return and standard deviation of stock XY is 9%, the expected return, and 13.15% is the standard deviation. And the expected return and standard deviations of stock D is equal to 8%, that is expected return, and 10.65% as the standard deviation. The correlation coefficient between XY and D is 0.75, that is R. R between X, Y and D is given as 0.75. So what we have to do is we have to calculate the expected return and standard deviation of the portfolio. So to solve for it, first of all we determine the weights of the different assets in the total investment. So we have in the XY stock the investment is 2000 out of total investment of 5000, because 2000 in XY and 3000 in stock D, so it makes total of 5000. So the weight of XY in total investment is 0.4, or 40%, and weight of stock D in total investment is 0.6, that is 60%. And we calculate the expected return, that is the weightage of XY in this total portfolio into expected return of that XY stock, and then weightage of stock D in the portfolio, and then expected return of stock D. So we assign the values here, that is we determined the weight of XY as 0.4 and the expected return of XY is 9%, and then weight of stock D is 60% and the expected return is 8%. So we solve for it, we get an expected return of this portfolio equal to 8.4%. And now we are going to solve for the standard deviation. And before we solve for the standard deviation, we prepare a variance covariance matrix, and we get the relationship of all the stocks with the portfolio. So for the stock, the weightage of stock XY with XY, and then the covariance of XY with itself, and we have this combination as well, the weightage of XY with the stock D and the covariance between XY and D, and then we take stock D in the first and its combination with the stock XY and stock D's combination with itself and the covariance of stock D with itself. So we determine them and we add them up to calculate the standard deviation. So we have the weightage of stock XY, multiply it with the weightage of stock XY, and then we calculate the covariance of stock XY with itself. So we have the standard deviation given here, and if you look at the formula here, that is the standard deviation of XY with itself, that is XY, and standard deviation for XY given in our example is 13.15%. So then we determine the sigma xy for xy, that is covariance of xy with itself. So we simply multiply the standard deviation given for for this value, that is in this case we have a standard deviation of 13.15% in case of stock xy. So it will be equal to 0.1315, and with itself we multiply it with itself 1315, and we get it equal to 0.0173. so this is the figure here. And now the second figure, that is the weightage of stock xy into weightage of stock D, that is wxy here into wd into the sigma or covariance between xy and D. So how do we calculate it? We can use this equation here. The covariance between xy and D, it is equal to correlation coefficient between xy and D multiplied with standard deviation of xy multiplied with standard deviation of D. So the it is given as 0.75 is given here as coefficient of correlation, and we multiply it with 0.1315, the standard deviation of stock xy, and 0.1065, the standard deviation of stock D, and then we get it equal to 0.0105. And then again here we have here stock W in the beginning, and then stock xy as given here as the weightage as 0.4, and then again we have covariance between stock D and xy. So again the calculation will be same. So in that case the covariance between D and xy, the calculation will be same, that is covariance, the coefficient of correlation between D and xy into standard deviation of D into standard deviation of xy. Now this coefficient of correlation, whether it is between D and xy or it is between xy or D, whatever you take in the beginning, the correlation coefficient would remain the same. So here the calculation will again become the same, 0.75 into 0.1065, the standard deviation of stock D into standard deviation of stock xy. So when we solve for it, and we get the same result as 0.0105, and then stock D with itself has a combination stock WD into WD into covariance of stock D with itself, that is the standard deviation of stock D into standard deviation of stock D, and we get 0.0113. And now we get the results of it here. We multiply them and we get these results, and then we add them up. We get these values here. We add them up and we take a square root of it, and we get the standard deviation of a portfolio, which is equal to 10.91%. So in this way we can calculate the standard deviation of a portfolio, and we can assign a value of risk with any portfolio combination. So if you see here, we are given the standard deviations for stock XY and stock W, and for the stock D here, and also the weights are also given here. So if you simply assign weights, that is the weight of stock XY to its standard deviation, and then weight of stock D to its standard deviation, and then you solve for it, and you will get a figure equal to 11.65%. and this is not the right way to solve for it, because the way we calculated it is 10.91%, and this is not equal to 11.65%. So this is not the correct way to solve for the standard deviation of a given portfolio. And now let's summarize the whole example we solved in the previous slides. So for stock XY, the returns were given as 9%, and stock D it was 8%, and for the portfolio we assigned weights to these respective returns, and we calculated the portfolio return. And then The standard deviations, they were given for stock XY and stock D here, and then we calculated the portfolio standard deviation and we used the variance covariance matrix, and then we added the whole calculations and we took the square root of that calculation and we got the portfolio standard deviation. अब इसमें एक mistake possible है, you might multiply the weight with the given standard deviation of each stock and then you may add just like we calculated the portfolio return, but that is not the correct way. आपको उसका वेरिएंस को वेरिएंस मैट्रिक्स तैयार करके वी कैलकुलेट फॉर दैट और उसके बाद ऐड ऑल द कैलकुलेशंस and then take square root of all those calculations, you will get the standard deviation for the portfolio. And now we see the coefficient of variation for these different stocks. So you can see here for the individual stocks we have the coefficient of variation in case of stock XY, divide the standard deviation with the return, that is standard deviation divided by the expected return, we have coefficient of variation 1.46, and then in case of stock D we have coefficient of variation 1.33, and then in case of portfolio, when we make a portfolio of different assets, you can see here the coefficient of variation is quite less than the individual coefficient of variations of these assets. So it means that when we go for a portfolio of investment, in that case the risk is reduced. The risk is lesser in case of portfolio than the individual investments, you can see here. So this method would be called diversification. When you invest in more than one asset to diversify the risk, to minimize the risk, that is known as diversification. So you can see here, in this case security E has this pattern of return. You can see here the investment returns, they are ranging from this point to this point, and sometimes they are higher, sometimes they are lower, and it is good for the firm to have it streamlined, that is not with big curves. So in that case, if you invest in a security which is not correlated with the security E, so in that case the return pattern, it is different in case of security F. So the combined effect of security F and security E with different coefficient of correlations, the combined effect is kind of streamline. So that streamline represents lesser risk. So in this case the coefficient of variation and standard deviation might be higher. In this case as well the coefficient of correlation and standard deviation would be higher, but in case of portfolio investment both the standard deviation and coefficient of variation will be lesser than the individual investments in different assets. And now we talk of systematic risk and unsystematic risk. So it makes the total risk. So the systematic risk is the variability of returns on stocks or portfolio associated with changes in the return on the market as a whole, where the performance of the firm doesn't matter. Instead, the overall economic condition or overall movement of all the market is going in a negative way or in a positive way. So if it goes to the negatively, it means there is a risk. So that is a systematic risk. It is not in control of individual businesses or individual investors. Whereas unsystematic risk is the variability of returns on the stock or portfolios not explained by the general market movement. It is avoidable through diversification. So the unsystematic risk is the one that can be avoided using different strategies, maybe diversification or choosing the right assets for investment. And now we explain the systematic risk graphically and unsystematic risk as well. So you can see here factors such as changes in the nation's economy, tax reforms by the government, or change in the world economic situation which is not in control of any individual. So the market has to respond accordingly. So that is known as systematic risk. So that systematic risk is unavoidable, and when you have any number of securities in your portfolio, systematic risk will remain the same. So you can see here the number of securities in the portfolio, you can keep adding more and more securities, whereas on this side the standard deviation of portfolio return is mentioned along the y-axis. So for a portfolio of lesser number of assets, the total risk is higher. You can see here the unsystematic risk and systematic risk. They both constitute total risk. So when you keep increasing the assets in the portfolio, that is, you go for diversification, you can reduce the unsystematic risk here, and as you keep on increasing the diversified investments in different assets, your unsystematic risk start decreasing here. And what is unsystematic risk? The factors unique to a particular company or industry. For example, the death of a key executive or loss of a government defense contract, or maybe there is an accident in the plant and machinery of the firm and the productions, they are hampered. In that case, the firm's value would reduce, and that is unsystematic risk, and the firms can avoid that type of risk. So the diversification would serve one of the purposes, that is, as long as you keep on increasing the assets in your investment, you can diversify that risk, you can reduce that risk. The standard deviation and the coefficient of variation will be lesser in case of a portfolio investment. So this shaded area represents unsystematic risk, which is controllable, but this area, which is systematic risk, is not controllable. And today we discussed different concepts, and in this lecture we covered the relationship or trade-off between risk and return, and what is risk and return, and how to measure them by calculating expected returns, standard deviation, and coefficient of variation. And also we discussed different types of investor attitudes towards risk. कि उसमें investors जो हैं, sometimes they go for the risk and sometimes they would avoid for the risk. And generally speaking, investors, they avoid risk. And then risk and return in a portfolio context, कि जब हम अपना risk को diversify करते हैं, to minimize करते हैं, investing in different assets, we discuss that concept. And avoidable unsystematic risk and unavoidable systematic risk, and the role of diversification in eliminating one of these risks. जिसमें हमने discuss किया था कि systematic risk, no one can avoid that, but the unsystematic risk, that is directly related to the performance of the investor or the company or the firm, that can be managed, and it can be reduced by increasing the number of assets in the portfolio. And this is all for today's lecture. Inshallah, see you in the next lecture. Till then, Assalamu alaikum.